another episode of Clear Lake Connections, where we talk to the people behind the brands of Bay Area Houston. Special guest today is Kerri Taylor with Unbound. Please tell us about Unbound and what it is that your organization does.
Well, Unbound is an international organization. We have 5 offices in Texas. We have Austin, Bryan College Station, Waco, Dallas-Fort Worth, we call it North Texas, and then Houston, of course. But we have some international chapters in Mongolia and Indonesia and South Africa. And we've got a work going on right now at the border of Poland and Ukraine, which is pretty important and timely right now. So each office gets to focus on their local issues and the things that really are affecting their community. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. We get to stand on each other's shoulder and have a lot of support when we need it, but we're very focused on our place, which is, we call it Unbound Houston, but we really serve, I would say, Harris County down to the island. We serve Brazoria County. Sometimes we're called in on Fort Bend. And so it's really kind of like the greater Bay Area. Houston would maybe be a better term for this office, but it's a pretty wide area that we serve.
And what's the mission of the organization?
Well, we do 3 primary things to fight human trafficking. So we're an anti-human trafficking organization, and it's such a complex, multi-layered kind of a problem that you just can't do everything that there is to do about it. But somebody really brighter than me a long time ago decided there were 3 main lanes we were going to run in, and that was prevention education, awareness for the community, also professional training, so that we recognize victims more easily, the people who intersect with them, and then survivor advocacy, because once you make people aware and you educate kiddos about it, people start calling your hotline and saying, hey, I think I have someone who's a victim. So that's kind of the order that we do it in.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier, that you use the term best kept secret, but we don't want to do that. It's an unfortunate secret.
Right.
And people tell people what's going on in our community, because I think most people have their blinders on and they have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I think most people here in the Bay Area would think, oh, that's something for really at-risk youth. That's something that affects them, and it does. About 75% of victims have complex trauma in their history. So they end up in places that the system serves, like on probation or in detention or, something like that, foster care. And so that is a big part of our population. But the truth is that these victims and potential victims are all around us all the time, because youth are primarily recruited, groomed, and sold online. So who's online? Not just at-risk kids, like all of our children are. They really are. And if your child interacts with platforms like Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok or any of those that we all know that they do, they would have to be living in a hole if they didn't. They really need to be aware of what entices a trafficker or what draws a trafficker to go after them. They're generally just looking to fulfill some very obvious need. So I don't think that my children were extremely vulnerable when I was raising them. It was a different world, but I would have said they had a great support structure. They had good parents involved. They weren't under the poverty line, or we were blessed not to be living in that way. But life is different now. So if you're online and you post about anything that disappoints you, like you didn't make the team, you had a bad breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you didn't do well on tests, or you just hate your life that day, right? When you post about those kind of things, traffickers are looking for a vulnerability. They're looking for somebody who's maybe bullied online, and they come and maybe they just like some of your posts for a while. Then they'll start commenting on them, and then they'll actually chat, and then suggest a meetup somewhere. And you see how it just started very innocently and organically went to a place where, oh, I'm going to meet someone who I really don't even know who they are. I'm believing that they're who they told me they are on the other side of this, medium, but um, who knows? And so we really have to be careful about kids and the freedoms they have online. I don't want to terrify anybody, but it's really an important thing. I'll suggest a great app for you, like for parents, because when I was raising my kids, nobody got to them except through me. Um, I certainly didn't let them in my home if I didn't know who they were. I didn't trust them.
Right.
But here's the thing, kids are talking to people all the time that their parents don't know. And, the answer is multi layered conversations every day, right? But there are just those days that even good parents don't really do much more than drive the car and get them to practice. And do you have time for a deep conversation every day? But there's this app called the Bark app. So what you do is you load it onto every platform that your child possibly could be on, whether that's their laptop or their phone or their gaming station, because they talk to people you and I don't know there, their tablet, whatever. You have to make sure you get all of them, anywhere that they could have an online conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then on your phone, which is also connected, if something sexual comes up, or something threatening in nature comes up, or even suicidal ideation, like those kind of thoughts, there's an algorithm that makes your phone bark at you.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, oh, I need to have a conversation today. What is that? And the conversations just have to be a little bit more frank and extensive than they've ever been. Because children are exposed all the time online to things you and I would never have approached. I think the average age of exposure to pornography is about 7 to 10.
Mm.
And it's not just pornography like naked pictures. It's violent, degrading pornography, unfortunately, that depicts violence against women. And if children, which they do, encounter this at a young age, and the prolific nature of it, how available it is, it's really going to shape the way they think about what safe behavior is, and the kinds of interactions they're going to have. So that's the part that people get scared about and people don't really want to talk about, because it feels like, oh my goodness, my kid's in trouble. But I just want to encourage everybody, if you're listening to this and so far you feel a little scared, the truth is, if you can just arm yourself with just knowledge and empower your children, like, what would I do if I thought my friend was being trafficked or was being approached by somebody that wasn't safe? Who's the safe adult that I would go, let's decide now, while I'm not panicked and nobody's in trouble, who would that be? Just forming an action plan. Because kids really are the answer to this. It's not me, I almost said elderly. I'm not elderly. Let's say, older, seasoned, mature person. But me coming in and talking to kids is not really going to change the way they think, right? But them understanding the issue and talking with one another and saying, hey, I've got your back, we've got your back. And, I don't even know these people over there very well, but that doesn't look safe, what's happening there. What would we do about that in our school? So I think you and I were talking with Greg Smith, and the superintendent or former superintendent of a very large school district, right? Some of the logistics, I'm just thinking about all the things now that they have to inform and warn their teachers about and their kids about. Just all the things. We won't list them now, but now we need to really teach them about how to stay safe from trafficking. And yes, but can I even get all of our students in an auditorium in a day to get them all, educated about this? And the answer is no, you probably can't, without sacrificing a lot of other things that school is for. But it's important, right? So Unbound has developed a new program for kids. It's called Sentinels, and it's really meant to be used. It's a completely video-based program that interested teachers, coaches, health teachers, anyone could present and do. Even a student-led club could do it and offer the suggestion. It's got all the information that we used to do in our assemblies, and it empowers students to really own this. And so I think it's a really, really good program.
Well, I think you're right, because the only thing that kids these days, the only people they try to have any privacy with is their parents.
Mm-hmm.
With social media, they don't understand privacy outside of the home.
Right.
So it probably makes them particularly vulnerable. But it also means that if you can reach those students, then they can develop the network and keep an eye out for each other.
Yeah, and just recognize red flags themselves, whether it's on their own profile and what would I do if I was approached by something that looks shady? Where do I report that? But even looking out for their friends. Oh, who's this person that's commenting on your profile all of a sudden? Like, who is that? Because what traffickers generally do, it's just they're so good at recognizing a need, whether it's low self-esteem or it's I don't know, a bad breakup, whatever it is. Hey, coming to that person, filling a need, wearing whatever mask. I think sometimes I get frustrated, and it's not, I shouldn't be frustrated, but those stories that go viral about kids getting snatched out of a cart at Target or something like that, that's not how trafficking happens. It's usually very slow. It's a very patient, manipulative process. They identify that need in a person, and then they just fill that need. Like if you're lonely, they'll be your best friend, or your boyfriend or girlfriend. If you need protection, they'll kind of take this parental role and a protector role. It could be whatever mask they need to wear, as long as they need to wear it. And it just creeps to where they get people to trust them and push their own ethical boundaries, and maybe the things that they wouldn't have been comfortable with a month ago, now they've been exposed to things and they would be, or maybe they just get blackmailed. They go to a party, people take pictures. You don't want anybody to see this, right? Not your coach, not your family, not your pastor. So you just have to do what we tell you, or we're going to put all this up on social media. Knowing that you're in a situation where you could be compromised that way is just, forewarned is forearmed, right? Prevention is always better than restoration. And not to demean that, because we do help people find their way to restoration, but I'd so much rather identify somebody in trouble in that critical window when somebody's trying to recruit them or groom them than pick up the pieces 6 months later, a year later, and where their trauma is going to be so profound that it's just really, really hard to help them.
Yeah. So as parents, you kind of want to monitor what the kids are putting out there, but you've got to kind of understand the vulnerability when they're vulnerable.
Right.
And that's really when you got to pay close attention.
Yeah, because you don't want to be that person they don't that they think is too overly protective, right? They're gonna dig in about that. You have to let them live and exist in the world they are in. And in 2022, that's a big part of that world is online. You can't stop that, but you can make them really smart about how they interact with technology. And you should probably up your game too as a parent, and take all the necessary steps you can to protect them, because it's not just, oh, maybe they'll get exposed to something and hear some bad words, or hear maybe see something you wish they hadn't seen. It literally is, they're connecting to a predator, and it could be life or death. We've served we're in our 3rd year running our advocacy center. We serve minors and young adults generally. Our youngest client was 4. Our oldest client, I think, was 46, 47, something like that. But most of them are kind of between 16 and 22. They they didn't sign up for what they got. They really got there not knowing they were going to be there. And I think we've served close to, halfway through our third year, 300 and something clients. So it's not something that doesn't exist here. I mean, we're not going out really and finding them. People are identifying them and calling us. That's how our program works. We have a 24/7 hotline. And if law enforcement or if a school counselor calls us, we're on scene within 90 minutes. And we kind of, there's this theory about this advocacy. It's a new kind of specialized human trafficking advocacy, that if you can be there right in that moment of crisis, identification when they're scared, they're lost, they have this trauma bond going on with their trafficker, right? And they're thinking, I need to get back. I need to run back to that person. If we can arrive on scene, give them a hot meal, a warm blanket, a listening ear, and empower them to choose safety. So research told us that if we could do that, many fewer of them would run back to their trafficker, and we've seen that. And all this time, I think, well, I know at the end of the second year, only 6 folks had run back to their trafficker. And of those 6, well, that was out of 272 victims, right? So 6 ran back. And 3 of those, half of them, reached out to that advocate because they had that name, that number, that trusted person who can kind of replace the trauma bond. And then when you've established that, they're going to walk through, safety planning and working through their trauma and some goal-oriented dreams. Like after you get out of that crisis phase, wow, what would I like my life to look like when I'm, 3 years from now? What are my gifts and talents? Who am I besides just a victim of human trafficking? Some people are artistic, some people have engineering minds, some people are bakers, or, what are you? And they have some chance to explore that, and we help them with lots of resources and connecting them to education where they can then make their own life, which is going to look really different than it would have before. There is a statistic. I know it's changing because there is so much work in this area right now. But it used to be, and the best that I know still is, once you fall into the life of trafficking, only 1% of victims actually step out. Now that's a grim statistic, right? If I lined up 100 victims, 1 of them might make it out. I know that that's changing. I've met lots of survivors who are telling their story and helping now solve the problem. So I think that's changing. But even if it's not 1%, like even if it's 20% better, 80% of victims, once you become a victim, you may not ever make it out of that life. So
the bond is that strong, and they got comfort when they needed it.
Well, it is, and it's just a very brutal, unhealthy life, so they just don't.
So I think the big thing for the community is to realize that when we talk about human trafficking, it's not, like you said, it's not what's portrayed on the media as, the sensational, this child was grabbed, or,
Right.
I think that's a big part of what people are probably misunderstanding about this.
Yeah, I think if you can just recognize healthy versus unhealthy relationships, like if I'm dating someone or if I'm a friend to someone, and they want to change things about me, they want to change my appearance, they don't respect my family, they kind of try to capitalize on conflict and drive a wedge between me and my parents. Why is that? Why do they drive a wedge between me and my old friends? Why are my old friends never welcome to go on when we're out on the weekends? Why would that be? Well, it's because they want to separate you from the people who really do trust you and care about you and become your all, like you're a new moral compass for you. They want to be your North Star. They really want to replace all of the things that have given you grounding before. And it sometimes it happens very quickly, depending on what your needs are, right? If you're super needy, that might not take very long. If you're well supported, we know people who were groomed for an entire year before they actually capitalized on them and exploited them. So traffickers are patient, they're smart, they're flexible, they can change their tack if something becomes more difficult or. But the one thing they always are is convincing to that needy young person. I've seen just talented, athletic, beautiful people fall victim to someone who treats them so poorly, and you're just like, how did they get there? Like, how did they ever be controlled by something like that? And it's like all abuse, like with domestic abuse, people stay in marriages they shouldn't stay
I was going to
in.
say, there sound like there's a lot of similarities in
It
some
really
of
is.
the domestic abuse.
It's very, very similar.
Yeah.
Why does a woman who's being brutalized not leave? Well, she's a prisoner in her mind, and that's how these kids are too. It's been a very manipulative process to keep them where they are, and they just don't think they have any options when they really do.
Yeah.
They really do. Help is all around. We just need to equip them to see it.
So let's say I suspect something, and how do I reach out to you guys to kind of get, I guess, the process started?
Well, generally, sometimes parents do call us. They call our hotline, which we will put on here in just a minute. I don't want to quote it wrong. Gotta get that right. But a parent can call us, and there's always an advocate who picks up, and you're not sure, but I think maybe my child is talking to someone, and it, from what I'm seeing, it looks like maybe there's trafficking going on here. Our advocate can set up appointments and work with them that way. If we get a call from a school counselor, or if we get a call from law enforcement who's identified someone, or maybe from our professional trainings, a dentist recognized someone in their chair this is a trafficking victim, or a pediatrician recognize it, we can be on scene within 90 minutes. That hotline is really for us in the Bay Area. We have been designated the CSA, the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Youth Advocate, the Specialized Human Trafficking Advocate. And in Galveston County, for sure, you can call us. In Harris County, you can call us, or you can call Triad, and we rotate with other agencies. And the Brazoria County as well, you can call our hotline, and we'll be there.
Now, so you did say that there's a lengthy professional training to spot this, and you do that for obviously all kinds of groups. What would be like the top 2 or 3 things that we as lay people can watch out for, and at least have our, I guess, spidey senses heightened?
I think as a lay person, noticing that there are tattoos, or what we would really call branding more than tattoos, because it probably has someone else's name on it. It's big, it's in a prominent place. It denotes ownership. It's not just, a scripture on your ankle or a pretty flower. And for me, a minor who has a tattoo of any kind, that's worth a conversation, because you have to get your parents' permission to get that. And that's probably, for a lot of minors, a kind of an interesting conversation,
Mm-hmm.
So just like, I see your tattoo. That's interesting. How'd you choose that? Just an open-ended question. Are they really avoiding talking to you about that? Do they not have a good answer? Do they look away, or look to someone else that's with them and not want to cross a bridge that they shouldn't, because they are really programmed not to give information? So that's one thing. If you notice that they all of a sudden have an older boyfriend or an older girlfriend, or just an older group of friends, and that they're not hanging out with their old friend set, that could be A warning sign. Another red flag is they just start missing school a lot. Um, and there's a pattern of absence. Even you can be trafficked and still attending school. You just are so controlled by that trafficker that they send you appointments or things that they need you to do via a phone, and so maybe they're absent just a few periods every day. That's very telling. If they're wearing designer clothes, designer purses, handbags, all of a sudden, like, where are they getting the money for that? Are they gifts from someone? If so, who is that? Even getting their nails done or their hair done, all those are normal things. But when it's really expensive, and you as a parent or you as a teacher wouldn't expect that person to be able to afford all that, well, where are they getting that, and who's providing that? I mean, a little bit further along, just noticing a real change in behavior because this child is not getting what they signed up for. They really, the most common method is seduction and the boyfriend method, right? Someone pretends and makes you believe that they're in love with you and that y'all are going to be together forever, but really is making you do things in between that you have been manipulated and feel like you have to do. You don't have a choice about. So they were signing up for romance, but now they're doing these things that they didn't really want to do. So often, their behavior is going to change. If they were really outgoing and bright and smart and fun, they may not meet your eye anymore. They may not have much to say, much like any assault victim would have. If they were quiet and introverted already, well, now they're loud and kind of using sassy language. And, people cope different ways, but it's the change that would be an indicator. I really do wish that I could tell you one silver bullet that would say, that this is trafficking. It's really much more a constellation of a lot of signs and symptoms. You see the friends change. You see the absenteeism. You see this older crowd that's really influenced. Just all these things together form the picture, and then you just go,
yeah. And I think if maybe, we attach a different word to it, like manipulation, because really, trafficking, like you said, we have this concept, but you can tell when people are being manipulated, and maybe that helps people think about that differently.
Yes, I think that's a really good thing to say, because I think we know there's trafficking happening at the border. Well, what does that look like? Not like this. We know there's trafficking happening in Eastern Europe now with people leaving Ukraine and being very vulnerable and needing help, and so they're being manipulated and taken. Yeah. They really are. That's different. They're being taken that way. But this is a slow roll of just gaining trust. So children here and young people here are in danger of sex trafficking and labor trafficking, but not really that violent.
Yeah, they're getting taken in a different sense.
Right.
They're getting taken from their normal life, or they're getting taken from their friends and family and being manipulated.
Yeah, and don't misunderstand. It does become violent. It does, but that's not how it starts. And so that slow roll in the way they gain trust and influence in your child's life, sometimes they gain your trust too. You don't see anything terrible happening.
Yeah.
It all adds up a little bit later. And yeah, we just have to have higher walls maybe than we're used to having. And really be focused on making sure your kid can talk to you about anything, that there's not shame. Because are they really going to talk to you? Like if they have dabbled in pornography, if you have made that a really taboo topic and you can't discuss that with them, that's a really important, it's just so prevalent. Kids need to talk to their parents about that. If they've done something that they're not proud of and someone's blackmailing them, could they bring that to you? Could they talk to you about that? Could they talk to their youth leader at church about it? Like, where there needs to be a lot of safe
Yeah.
spaces where it's okay to talk about these really difficult situations.
Yeah, and it's, those are tough relationships with, you have to
Hmm.
find that trusting adult. So tell us how we can help Unbound fulfill this incredibly important mission.
Well, I think I'd say a lot of prayers for our advocates because they're doing really hard work. They're hearing stories sometimes it's just a heavy lift. It's a lot to carry. But beyond that, because it's a heavy lift, because of the kind of people they're serving, it's very expensive work. They never have more than 15 clients at a time. 12 is their sweet spot usually. And so, and then when you meet a client, there's just a lot of needs. What they need health care, they need prescriptions usually, they need housing. So all of these things just add up and they're expensive. And we have one fundraiser that we do every year in the fall. This year it's October 22nd, and it's our Light Up the Dark 5K. And so it's at Moody Gardens, a beautiful venue. It's certified course, so if you're a serious runner, you can do that. But if you just want to walk it or stroll it with your kids, you can do that. It's family fun. It's light. We don't talk about all the things we talked about today. We just have fun. And you get to do the ropes course like for cheaper than you could ever do at another time. But the real help there obviously is sponsorship, right? We need people to come sponsor and put their name up. And if you want to be a sponsor of that event, you have from now until September to have your name on billboards and on signs and on the website and all the places like that. And at the same time, really your dollar's getting stretched. I feel like, I don't think there's anyone who could stretch a dollar further than we do. We have an amazing network of collaborative partners we refer to and get help where we can. But making sure we have a place to take kids and young adults when they're identified and they're our clients, we need help doing that. And so it's a very expensive program. So we'll take donations. You can go to our website, unboundhouston.org. There's a way to give there. There's this thing we call the Ignite team. So if you're a monthly giver, which is really, that's what makes everything possible, right? Is to have people who just have bought in, and you have to do at least $25 a month, but then you get a special t-shirt and you get invited to other things where you connect with other supporters, or you don't have to come if you don't want to do that. But we need sponsors for the 5K race. We need those Ignite team monthly donors. And, there are other things too. People who really want to jump in and connect with kids. We do programs in Galveston County and Brazoria County. We're looking to start one in Harris County, where all of the girls on probation and boys in detention have to attend. The judge orders them to attend our series of classes, 2 classes that tell them about what makes you vulnerable. How does a recruiter operate? What does grooming look like? What are healthy and unhealthy relationships? What would I do if I thought I was at risk or my friend was at risk? Anyway, when we do these classes, sometimes that's how we identify people, because kids will stand up and say, oh my goodness, that's happening to me right now. Well, I'm super glad I was in probation. And I've never had a volunteer say, man, I wish I'd slept in this Saturday morning. This wasn't worth my time. They're always like, oh my goodness, did you hear what the conversation was? Did you hear how, the light went off for that person? So that's a deeper level of volunteering, and we really need those volunteers. COVID kind of shut all that down for us for a while, and we need a new round of volunteers who will step in. And you have to do 2 classes about every quarter. So it's not a huge commitment, but up front, you have to do a little bit of training. You have to have a background check in order to go into the JJD facilities. But I don't know, we have cookies. We give them treats. They enjoy your time. They all think they're there because they're in trouble. And when they find out you came to like love on them and empower them and give them a donut, they're pretty happy that that's part of their probation. So if that, floats any boat, if anybody thinks, hey, I really would resonate with that, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
We'll set you up. So go to our website, unboundhouston.org. You can find out about the race. You can find out how to volunteer. You can donate right there. All of those things are important to us.
Yeah, and I think if people start talking about this issue and realizing it's here and it's prevalent, and that's the real shame of it. And we've been very diplomatic in the way we've discussed this, and I don't normally address the audience, but trafficking is as bad. It's the worst thing you can imagine. I mean, we've used very polite words here, but it's unthinkable what some of these kids go through. I mean, being bought by another human being, it's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why people are afraid to look at it. And often, like, is this really what we want to have for our lunch program? Because I don't want everybody to go home. I will never tell anybody about the problem when I don't equip them with a way to fight back. And so those volunteering ways, being at our 5K, but even I hope when we do the podcast, we'll just put the National Human Trafficking Hotline up there.
Absolutely.
You see something kind of suspicious, or you see a child that has that tattoo or that branding, you can call that 800 number, that hotline. And the great thing is you don't even have to know, am I in Webster? Am I in League City? Am I in Dickinson? Like, who should I call? That number sees where you are, connects you to the right jurisdiction, and you just report what you see. You can do it anonymously. You can say, this child's in trouble, or you can say, something shady's happening at this residence or this business. It needs to be checked out.
Yeah, I think we as humans, we've been conditioned to look always for facts. We were born with, I call it a spidey sense. I mean, we were born, if the hair on your neck stands up, follow through with that.
Yeah, I can't remember who that author was. A really deep thinker called it the gift of fear. Like when no other animal ignores instincts like that. If their hair comes up on their back, they're going to do something about it. And we often feel like, oh, I don't want to offend that person by acting scared, or no, we've just got to empower our kids. Like, fear can be a gift, like in that kind of fear, instinctual fear. The other kind of fear, where somebody tries to tell you, you can't, you're not good for anything except this. This is all you're good for. I own you. That kind of fear, that's not okay. And, just differentiating things like that can be super helpful. Like, if you talk about it ahead of time, when I recognize it, I kind of have a grid about what I would do in that situation. If I've never heard about it and somebody comes up and says, hey, don't I know you on Snapchat, and sits down to talk with me, and a red flag, no hair will be raised on the back of my neck, because it just feels very organic.
Yeah.
But if you've seen how traffickers work and you go, oh, this is suspicious. It's just information. It's just knowledge is power. It really is.
Well, Kerri, thank you for coming on the program. Thank you for all the work you and Unbound Houston do. If there's anything we can do, let us know. I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me. I love getting to educate business people about this, because I know that they believe in their community. They want it to be a healthy place to raise their family and conduct business. So, who else is going to be a better champion than that? Excellent. Thank you.